everyone! So today we're going to be working more on this page from Tales of the Witch's Cottage by Hanna Karlzon. And today I'm going to start working on the tree trunks. So I have a color palette in mind, mostly teals and pinks. So the tree trunks, I want them to lean a little more brown than the pink leaves that we have here, but I don't want to use a complete realistic brown. And when I started this page, or when I opened this page and decided I wanted to color it, it was around Valentine's Day. So I'm thinking like Valentine's color scheme with a pop of teal, basically, is my goal. So I've picked out the colors that we're going to start with for the trunks. Let me show you what those are. You can see I've tried a couple different combinations of things, and this is what I've settled on for today. So for kind of our medium tones, we're going to be looking at henna, and these are Prismacolor. So let's see, henna, kind of a mid-tone, and then going a bit lighter is Nectar, and then coming down a bit darker we'll use, or I will use anyway, Mahogany Red. We'll use cream just like we did for the pink leaves as our highlight color. And then our deep shadows will be Tuscan Red. So that's kind of what we're starting with. I may, as time goes on and fill in more of the page, decide that I need to add in another color, like I might throw in another color later over top of whatever it is that we do today. But for today, this is our starting point for those tree trunks. All right, so basically the way that I'm going to be coloring this is as if it's sort of backlit. So around the edges on all sides, I'm going to use the cream, and I'm actually going to do this first because when I want like a glow effect, I like to put down that highlight first. So what I'm doing is I'm going to be covering up the edge lines to give the glow around the edges. And the reason that I do this is because if I do this pretty hard and lay down that color, then whatever pencil that goes on top of it is going to be kind of resistant because there's already wax there. So as long as I go hard and not in a light layer, it will resist any pencil that I put down on top of it. So that will kind of automatically give me a little buffer of like a glow effect. Also, if you don't want to use a gel pen or Posca pen, which I will be doing not in this video, but later when the picture is more filled in, I'll go over things that I want to go over, highlights and things with a Posca pen. If you don't want to do that, this also lightens those dark lines for you. You could even do this with white if you want to lighten those lines up even more, okay? And I'm not going down here in front of the cat because the cat is going to be blocking that backlight. So I might take it down just a bit and take this down just a bit and just a bit. But I'm not going to be outlining here so much because the cat is blocking that backlight. So that's done. That's my first step. And then what I'm going to do is take a mid-tone, probably my mid-tone, which is henna. And I'm going to go in and mark some of those shadows. So because it's backlit, the darkest part of the tree is going to be toward the middle. So I'm going to start in the middle, and I'm just going to follow some of these lines that are inked in here. And I'm just being kind of lazy about this. I'm just tracing over those lines with my mid-tone. I'm not going to go all the way out to the edges. I will because these branches are coming out of the leaves. They probably are in a bit of shadow, so I'll just go ahead and mark that shadow in like that. And basically I just go a little harder close to the leaves and then lighten the pressure as I come away. It's also going to be darker toward the bottom here because almost no backlight is reaching, and it's got all the foliage down here blocking a lot of the light. Oh look, I missed a leaf. And then kind of fade it up. Okay. Just going to shade in this little area here. Any shapes that you decide to shade in are going to recess them and push them backward into the page. So by shading this part here, it makes it look like that trunk is kind of curving around this way between the main trunk and this larger branch that's coming out. So you can see this line's going this way and this line's going this way, and that kind of tells me that that's probably a good place to shade where those lines diverge. Oh, let me add some shadows up here. I missed these guys up here. Okay. I'm going to take my darker color, which is Mahogany Red in this case, and I'm going to go into those recessed spots. And again, going over those lines. I basically just do the same thing that I just did with slightly thinner lines, covering less of the page so that I'm leaving some of that henna color untouched. And the closer I go to the bottom, the darker I'm going to do, but I'm not going to push super hard because I don't want to burnish the paper. Burnishing is when you're pushing the tooth of the paper down with the pencil. And then once that's done, it's harder to add color on top. So I don't want to do that yet because I do still have a darker color. And I want to be able to lay that down fairly dark, so if I'm pushing to the point of burnishing, I won't be able to get that color as deep as I want when I add it on top. So darker as you go to the bottom, but don't push super hard. You don't want to flatten the paper yet. And again, I'm focusing more on the middle of the tree because when it's backlit, the middle is going to be the darkest section. Okay, now at this point, what I think I'm going to do before I add the Nectar, which is the lighter color than the midtone, before I even do that, I think I'm going to lay down my highlight because there's spots that I want to preserve. I want this to look really textured. So I'm anywhere that's kind of white right now, I'm going to go ahead and add that highlight. And I'm not pushing very hard, but I do want that color down on the page. Just kind of, it's going to mix and blend what I already have, and I'm just going over the white spaces pretty lightly. And again, I'm doing that kind of to preserve those white spaces and make it more resistant for any color that goes down on top of those white spaces, so that it can't get quite as dark there when I use my darker colors over top. Okay, so I do want that. I want some spots poking out in the middle that are bright, because that gives it more of the like chunky barky look. I'm imagining kind of like redwood bark in a way. I think I just want to add more shadow, so I'm going to take my Mahogany Red again, and I want to darken this area, set this back in some shadow. This here. Oh, and the fridge. Our best friend, the fridge. So it is backlit, but also like a top-down backlit. So in these little knobs, you can see I've colored kind of the bottom half of them while leaving a rim around the edge. Okay, it's pretty good. I'm gonna add in some Nectar. Just maybe in some little places, not everywhere, just to give some color variation. And if you can't tell, I'm totally making this up as I go. No plan. All I planned was which colors I was going to use, and that it was going to be backlit. Now this is the Tuscan Red, so this is my darkest color, and I may decide to pull out a black raspberry if I feel like anything needs to be a lot darker, if there's not enough contrast with these colors. Then I had tried a couple different things earlier. You had seen my paper, and black raspberry was what I decided that I would use if I wanted something even darker than the Tuscan Red. Okay, so now I'm tracing around the lines, and these are really thin lines. The thinner the line, the harsher the shadow. And now here I did the same thing where I was coloring the shadow in the bottom half, but instead of just circling down like I did with the, what was it, the Mahogany Red, I just traced the lines there in the bottom half instead. I'll do the same thing kind of here, just those little line bits right there. Okay, I'm going to put this part in some shadow here. Okay, and now the top of one of the leaves, I'm just going to go kind of at the edges and then trace down the line if there's a line there. So edges, and then just a little bit. There's no line there, but I'm going to add one. Okay, I'm going to take my mid-tone again henna, the first one that I used, and just add in some more lines or go over any lines. Maybe some of these spots in the middle, I'll just go over a little bit, and because I put the cream down, it is going to be a little bit resistant to the henna. That's okay, it's going to warm up the henna from underneath a bit. Here's the cream. And I am burnishing around those edges now because it's pushing and pulling the pencil wax that's already on the page, so it's helping to blend. And it doesn't quite have the glow that I want yet, but it will make a huge difference when I add the Posca pen. So actually, I said I was going to do that later, but I want to do it now just to see what it's going to look like. So let me grab my Posca. Okay, I've got two options for Posca. I've got the white, and then I've got this ivory color. So I'm going to test those out and see which one I want to use. I'm just going to do it kind of like that. That's the ivory. My regular white one I think is empty or just not cooperating, so I grabbed a couple other things. We can use a gel pen. That's what the white gel pen looks like. This is a jelly roll. I do not like using gel pen. I don't think it rolls very easily. I always have to come over here and scribble scrabble. Yeah, I don't want to use a gel pen. And then other option is this is a brush Posca. So maybe the brush Posca, maybe the brush and the ivory on top. Well, maybe that's what we'll do. That it's brighter. Okay. So I'm going to use the brush, and I'm just going to go around the edges. And I'm just using the very tip of the brush. You don't have to have the brush one to do this. I wasn't going to use the brush. It's just what I've got. Okay. Bring it down just a bit. Boop. So the brush is more transparent and less opaque, so you can still see the lines through it, which is great for some things. I liked using it on the spider webs on the Sanderson Sisters page, if you saw that one. And I used it as ocean spray in a page that I finished recently that's on my Instagram. So I do really like the brush. I just wanted something a little more opaque for this, which is why I'm going to go over it with the ivory. Lightening those lines and then going over it with the ivory will help the ivory be brightened as well. So okay, so I'm going to let that dry for a sec. While it's drying, I think I'm going to go ahead and add some more Mahogany Red. I think some parts of this just could be darker. Nope, not Mahogany Red. Tuscan Red. Just want more contrast. I am being pretty heavy-handed with this. As I'm tracing those lines. Basically what I'm trying to do is make those lines look like shadows and less like line art. Because going over them with the pencil helps fuzz them out. Okay. Now I feel like I want to warm it up a little bit, but before I do, I am going to go over those edges with the ivory, because that brush is probably dry now. So you can see this nib is much more opaque. Than the brush. And one thing I can also do is kind of, if there are any lines that I'd gone over with the shadow that are kind of close to the edge, I can bring those up like this into the tree and then dab a bit to kind of fuzz them. And then I can go over it a second time if I need to. Let it dry for a sec and then dab. Okay, and that helps the light come into the texture on the tree. I just kind of flick it on there. And I can kind of bring that in on some top of some of these lines here. Only a few of them to make them look like they're poking out a bit. Okay, I'm going to try something. I want to warm it up just a little, so I'm going to use a Deco Yellow on some of those highlighted areas. Okay, I like the way that's looked. That gives it more like a sunset-y glow with the much warmer highlight color. So I may end up going over the pink leaves with some of this Deco Yellow as well. Not today, but at some point. I'm going to just fuzz out these lines a little bit. And then maybe add some more color down here. So it's really just a lot of trial and error. I put color down and then go, where does it need more? Okay, let's add it there. Oh, is it warm enough? No, let's add some yellow. Oh, is it too cool? Let's add some whatever. I don't know. Is it looking backlit enough? No, let's try the Posca now. Okay, and something else I can do that I do enjoy doing sometimes is use my little tiny eraser. And if I want some bright highlights, I can take this little tiny eraser and decide that I just want a couple bright spots. So when you have a greater difference between your highlight and your shadow, then it looks much more 3D. I'm just going to go around the edges a bit again. Okay, I am aware that right now it does not look super backlit. And I'm really feeling like I'm not done with these tree trunks. But I do feel like I'm as done as I can be right now before I start coloring in what's behind the tree trunk. So once I've got the cat in, I will probably come revisit this tree trunk. So this is like a part 1 of the tree trunk, and part 2 is not going to come till a little ways later. That's just how I work. I fill in what I can, and then I decide, I need to see the rest of the color first before I really finish up or perfect what I'm working on.